Hello, hello. We only got about, let's see. I think we're getting close to having a week left. We're going to end on the 20th. Yeah, so we're at just about a week left. That means I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more days before the end. Jerry, I hope you stick around with me until then. Anybody else, if you want to jump in, I'm going to go ahead and wait a couple minutes, see if anybody wants to join us. We're on chapter 14. Jerry, is that you? Hey, what's the song that you wanted? Let me put it on in the background now before I get started. No, it's Drake. So what song did you want, Jerry? Can you hear it okay? It's just a commercial right now. Can you hear it? Hey, so whoever the second person is, Jerry requested that we have the song in the background. So I'm gonna have it maybe not quite as loud. Um, yeah, we're just gonna have a little Future and Drake in the background while I read. Okay, so chapter 15, an invitation in writing. The next day, November 9th, I woke up only after my long 12-hour slumber. Conseil, there we go. Conseil, a creature of habit, came to ask how his master's night went, and then went to offer his services. He left his Canadian friend sleeping like a man who had never done anything else. I let the gallant lad babble away without putting much energy into answering him. I was concerned about Captain Nemo's absence during our previous afternoon, and I hoped to see him again today. As soon as I put on my clothes, which were woven from strands of seashell tissue, more than once their composition drew comments from Conseil. I informed him that they were made of a smooth silken filament, which the fan mussel, a type of seashell plentiful along the Mediterranean beaches, attaches itself to rocks. In olden times, folks made fine fabric, stockings, and gloves with these filaments because they were very soft and warm. So the Nautilus's crew could dress themselves on the cheap without needing things from cotton growers, sheep, silkworms, or anything else on the shore. As soon as I got dressed, I made my way to the main lounge. It was empty. I plunged into studying the conchological treasures amassed in the glass cases. I also investigated the huge plant albums filled with the rarest marine herbs, which still stood in their wonderful colors as though they were pressed and dried. Finally, I noted the complete series of seaweeds along the valuable water plants. Some of these peacock tails, vine leaf copperla, red algae from species Calathemum granulatum, delicate ceramics tinted scarlet, dolls arranged into fan shapes, mermaid cups that looked like the capped squat mushrooms that had for years been classified among zoophytes. The entire workday went without my being honored by a visit from Captain Nemo. The panels in the lounge didn't open. Maybe they didn't want us to get tired of all the lovely things. The Nautilus kept a northeasterly heading, with a speed of 12 miles per hour. And the next day, November 12th, the same neglect, the same solitude. I didn't see a soul from the crew. Ned and Conseil spent most of their day with me. They were amazed at the captain's bewildering absence. Was the strange man ill? Did he want to change his plans concerning us? But after all, Conseil noted, we enjoyed complete freedom. We were delicately and abundantly fed. Our host kept up his side of the bargain. We had no grounds for complaint, and furthermore, our lot was so unique and promised us such generous rewards that we didn't have any reason to be critical. The day that I started my journal of these adventures, which allowed me to describe them in the most scrupulous accuracy. Here's an odd detail. I wrote it on paper manufactured from marine eelgrass. Early in the morning on November 11th, fresh air poured through the Nautilus's interior, informing me that we had come back to the surface of the ocean to replenish our oxygen supply. I headed for the central companionway and climbed onto the platform. It was 6 o'clock. I found the sky overcast with the sea gray and calm. Barely a billow. I was hoping to run into Captain Nemo there. Would he come below on the deck? I saw only the helmsman closed up on his glass-winded windowed pilot house. Seated on the ledge, furnished by a skiff's hull, I inhaled the sea's salty aroma with great pleasure. Little by little, the fog dispersed in the action of the sun rays. That shining orb cleared the eastern horizon. Under its glance, the sea caught on like a fire with a trail of gunpowder. Scattered on high, the clouds were tinted with the bright, wonderfully shaded colors, and a large number of cat's tongues warned of winds all day. Cat's tongues in this case are the little white clouds with the ragged edges. But what were these winds to the Nautilus, who no storm could faze? I was marveling at this delightful sunrise, so cheery and refreshing, when I heard someone climbing up to the platform. It was Captain Nemo. Uh, I was all set to greet Captain Nemo, excuse me, but it was his chief officer who appeared, who I had already met during our first visit with the captain. He moved forward across the platform, seeming not to notice my presence. A powerful spyglass up to his eye, he scrutinized every corner of the horizon with the utmost care. His examination finished, he went over to the hatch and uttered the sentence whose exact wording follows below. I remember it because he repeated it every morning under the same circumstances. It went like this: Nautron respok lor mi virk. As for what it meant, I couldn't say. These words spoken, the chief officer went down below. I had figured that the Nautilus was about to resume its underwater voyaging, so I went down to the hatch to look through the corridors of my stateroom. 5 days went by this way without any change in our circumstances. Every morning I climbed onto the platform. The same individual uttered the same sentence. Nautron respok lorni virk. Captain Nemo did not appear. I'd adopted the policy that we'd seen the last of him. When on November 16th, when I was going back to my stateroom with Ned and Conseil, I found a note addressed to me on the table. I opened it impatiently. It was written in a clear and neat but a bit old English style, its characters reminding me of German calligraphy. It read as follows: November 16th, 1867. To Professor Aronow, aboard the Nautilus. Captain Nemo invites Professor Aronow on a hunting trip that will take place tomorrow morning in the Crespo Island forests. He hopes nothing will keep the professor from attending, and he looks forward to the pleasure of the professor's companions joining him. Captain Nemo, Captain of the Nautilus. A hunting trip, Ned exclaimed. And his forests of and in his forests of Crespo Island, Conseil added. But does this mean the old boy goes ashore? Ned Land went on. That seems the gist of it, I said, rereading the letters. Well, then we've got to accept, the Canadian remarked. Once we're on solid ground, we can figure out our next move. Besides, it wouldn't pain me to eat a couple of slices of fresh venison. Venison is deer meat. I didn't try to reconcile the contradiction between Captain Nemo's open aversion to continents and islands and his invitation to go hunting in the forest. Instead, I was content to reply. First of all, let's look into this Crespo Island. I checked the world map, and in latitude 32 degrees 40 north and longitude 167 west, we found an islet that Captain Crespo had scouted in 1801, and that old Spanish chart's called Roca de Plata. In other words, Silver Rock. But you know that, you speak Spanish, Jerry. So we're about 1,800 miles from our starting point, and by slight change of heading, the Nautilus was now taking us back towards the southeast. I showed my companions the small stray rock in the middle of the North Pacific. If Captain Nemo goes ashore sometimes, I told him, at least he only picks desert islands. Ned looked at his hand without replying. Then he and Conseil left me. After supper was served to me by my mute and unresponsive steward, I fell asleep, but not without a few anxieties. When I woke up the next day, November 17th, I found the Nautilus completely motionless. I dressed quickly and went into the main lounge. Captain Nemo was waiting for me. He got up, bowed, and asked if it suited me to come along. Since he had made no allusions to his absence in the past week, I also refrained from mentioning it, and I answered simply to that my companions and I were ready to go with him. Only, sir, I added, I'll take the liberty of asking you a question. Fire away, Professor Aronow, and I will respond if I can. Well then, Captain, how is it that you've severed all ties with dry land, yet you own forests in Crespo Island? Professor, the captain answered me, these forests of mine don't bask in the warmth and brightness of the sun. No lions, tigers, panthers, or other quadrupeds frequent them. They're known to me alone. They grow for me alone. These forests aren't land. They're underwater forests. Underwater forests? I exclaimed. Yes, Professor. And you're offering to take us with them? With you, exactly. On foot. Without getting your feet wet. While hunting. While hunting. Rifles in hand? Rifles in hand. I looked at the Nautilus's commander with an attitude anything but flattering to the man. He has a brain fever, no doubt about it, I said to myself. He had an attack a week ago and he isn't over it yet. What a shame. I liked him better unconventional than unhinged. These thoughts were clearly read on my face. But Captain Nemo seemed content with inviting me to go on with him, which I did, like someone resigned to the worst. When we arrived at the dining room, we found breakfast ready. Professor Aronow, the captain told me, let us have breakfast together without any formality. We can chat while we eat, because though I promised you a stroll in my forest, I didn't agree to find you a restaurant there. So eat your breakfast like a man who will most likely not eat dinner until extremely late. I did justice to the meal. It consisted of assorted fish and some slices of sea cucumber, a praise worthy zoophyte, all garnished with the highly appetizing seaweeds as Porphyria lacynthia and Laurencia prima fetida. Our drink was clear water, to which, following the captain's example, I added a few drops of fermented liquor extracted from the Camacho method from the seaweed known as Rhodimendia palmata. At first, Captain Nemo ate without saying a word. Then he told me, Professor, when I proposed you go hunting in the Crespo forests, you said I was contradicting myself. When I informed you that the forests in question were underwater, you thought I'd gone insane. Professor, you must never make snap judgments about your fellow man. But, Captain, believe me, kindly listen to me, and we'll see if you have any grounds for accusing me of insanity or self contradiction. I'm all attention. Professor, you know as well as I that a man can survive underwater so long as he carries with him his own supply of air to breathe. For underwater work projects, a workman wears waterproof suit with his head enclosed in a metal helmet, while he gets air from above with the help of force pumps that flow controls. That's the standard equipment for a diving suit, I said. Exactly. But under such conditions, the man has no freedom. He's attached to the pump that sends him air through the India rubber hose. It's a literal chain that shackles him to the shore. If we were tied down to the Nautilus in this way, we couldn't get very far. Then how do you break free? By using the Rocanol Denirose, device, invented by two of your countrymen, but perfected by me for my own special uses, thereby allowing you to risk these new physiological conditions without experiencing any organic disorders. It consists of a tank made of heavy sheet iron, which I store air under pressure of 50 atmospheres. The tank is fastened to your back with straps, like a soldier's knapsack. Its upper part forms a container where the air is regulated by bellow mechanisms that can be released only at the proper tension. It's the Roqueyrol device that has been in general use. Two India rubber hoses that leave this container and feed a sort of tent that covers the operator's nose and mouth. One hose for the entrance, for the air to be inhaled, and the other, the exit for the air to be exhaled. And the tongue shuts off the former and the latter depending on the breather's needs. But in my case, since I face considerable pressures of the seafloor, I need to enclose my head in a brass globe like those found on standard diving suits. And those two hoses for inhalation and exhalation now feed that globe. That's perfect, Captain Nemo. But the air you carry must be quickly consumed, since once it's less than 15% oxygen, it's unfit for breathing. Surely, but as I told you, Professor Aronow, the Nautilus's pumps allow me to store air under considerable pressure. Given this fact, the tanks on my diving equipment can supply breathable air for 9 or 10 hours. I have no objections to raise, I replied. I'll only ask you this, Captain. How can you light your way on the ocean floor? With the Rumkeroff device, Professor Aronow. If the other is carried on your back, then this one is fastened to your belt. It features a Bunsen battery that I activate not with potassium dichromate but with sodium. The induction coil gathers electricity generated and directs it specifically to a designed lantern. The lantern there is a glass spiral with just a slight residue of carbon dioxide gas. When this device is turned on, the gas becomes luminous and gives off continual whitish light. Thus equipped, I can breathe and see. Captain Nemo, you've met all my objections with overwhelming answers, and I don't dare have any doubts. But even though I'm forced to accept your devices, I'm still dubious about the rifle you're going to give me. Oh, but this rifle that doesn't use gunpowder. So it's an air gun? Surely. How could I make gunpowder on my ship when I don't have any saltpeter, sulfur, or charcoal? Even so, I said, to fire underwater in a medium that's 855 times denser than air, you would need considerable resistance. That doesn't necessarily follow. Following Fulton designs, the Englishmen Philip Cole and Burley, the Frenchman Fursay, the Italian Landi have perfected guns that are equipped with a special system of airtight fastenings that can fire underwater conditions. But I repeat, since I don't have any gunpowder, I've replaced it with air at high pressure, which is generally supplied by the Nautilus pumps. But the air must run out very quickly. Well, in a pinch, when I can't get any more from my tank, all you have to do is make a spigot. Besides, Professor Arno, you'll have to see for yourself. These underwater hunting trips, we use little air and few bullets. But in the semi-darkness, in the midst of the liquid so dense by comparison to the open air, to me gunshots could carry far and would be seldom fatal. On the contrary, sir, with this rifle, every shot is fatal. As soon as an animal is hit, no matter how lightly, it drops as if struck by lightning. Why? Because the rifle doesn't shoot ordinary bullets, but little glass capsules invented by the Austrian chemist Levnebruck, and I have a considerable supply of them. These glass capsules are covered with a strip of steel and weighted with a lead base. They're genuine little leaden jars that are charged with high voltage electricity. They go off with the slightest impact. The animal drops dead no matter how strong it is. These capsules, I might add, are no bigger than a .4 shot and fit in the chamber of any ordinary rifle that could hold 10 of them. I'll quit debating, I replied, getting up from the table. That's left for me is to shoulder my rifle. Where you go, I will go. Captain Nemo led me to the Nautilus's stern. Going past Ned and Conseil's cabin, I called my two companions, that instantly fell in line behind me. Then we arrived at the cell located close to the engine room, and in this cell, we got dressed for our little stroll. Next time, the hunting trip, chapter 16. Jerry, thanks for sticking around with me, and I'll see you tomorrow.